let's get into it. So, Ellie, I'm sure a lot of people know who you are, but I would love for you to just give us like a little rundown and then we'll dive in.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, cool. I can see comments and things now as well. So I am a mastermind mentor and a business coach. So the really quick version of my story is I started in my business about 9 years ago, worked in corporate marketing and strategy before that. I was doing that thing that so many of us know, where we start working one to one and build a business to a point where we're like, this doesn't feel like it's quite right for me. But, what do? I have a wait list. I need to, make a plan here. And you and I started working together around that time, Lace. And I remember saying to you, I want to scale, I want to build. I don't know what that looks like. I really like this idea of starting a mastermind. I've never been in a mastermind. Could I possibly start a mastermind when I've never been in one? And I actually think I remember your eyes lighting up at the time, being like, well, this feels like a fun little challenge for you in your life. So started my very first mastermind when I'd never been in one, sold it out with 20 people, used, a really specific sales approach and strategy for that I'd used throughout my one-to-one. And of course, thought that was a fluke until 6 months later when went to sell it out again. Gratefully did so and started running this really beautiful business, which became a mastermind only business. Fast forward a few years in, and I was like, why is no one else really talking about like this type of business in this way and like how incredible it is? And I was sitting on the beach at the time, and it was one of those like light bulb moments of because you're supposed to be that person. You're like
Mhm.
you need to talk about this more. And so that's very much where I've got to now is just being such a champion for running a mastermind first business. I love high ticket, so I love having this conversation. I love the power of small leverage groups. And working really intimately with clients. Obviously, for me in a group setting, for you in one-to-one, which is where I know these conversations for us, there's just so much that we both agree on that just looks slightly different.
Yes, totally. Hi guys. Hey Adrian. Hey Anna. Hey Kristen. I missed some of y'all, but thank you for being here. I always forget to say this, but obviously if you're here, say hi, any comment, we always do a gift card giveaway just as a thank you for being with us. I feel like it's like no small thing to have someone like give you their time and attention in this way at this like stage in the online space. So anyway, thank you for being here and hey Sarah. And we will always just randomly pick someone for $100 gift card. So thank you. But yeah, totally. I think that what I think is so interesting, like I've been doing this for a decade now, which is crazy. I think you said 9 years. There's so much that like goes in and out of style, so to speak, in the online space. There's been plenty of times where I was like doubled down on one-on-one, where everyone was saying like nobody wants one-on-one anymore. And equally there have been times where it seems like that's really the thing is like, high touch, high ticket. And so I think it's helpful to be like, we're not saying it's any one thing or this is the only right way. However, both of us have had really sustainable businesses having high ticket offers for many, many years. And I think in this season of AI, I mean, I guess it's not a season, it's here to stay, right? But in this kind of like new version of AI that we're all kind of getting into, um, I think it's what people are craving a little bit more right now, simply because information is just like flooding us. It's everywhere. We're getting fire hose. So I think all of those kind of small ways that we used to gain information in our industry are really changing, but high ticket is kind of one of those sort of more lasting ways. At least right now, again, nobody has a crystal ball, like who knows where it's going to be. So I feel like it's just a really helpful conversation because I personally feel like so many people think that like I don't even know what the word I want to use. Like high touch, high ticket is so limiting, and I guess is a good way to say it. And I think you've done a really good job of like kind of taking the opposite stance on that, Ellie, in terms of like how actually freedom giving it is. So I feel like that would be a good part to start in because I think when most people have an objection to it, it's definitely around the like limitations of growth and maybe even time, and then also around the limitations of like how much can I hold all of these people. So I feel like we could kind of get into both of those. But if you want to just start with that like growth limitation, I think that would be helpful.
It's like my favorite conversation to have right now. So the really interesting thing about the growth conversation is if you asked almost all of my clients, and I'm sure yours as well, and I'm sure so many of you here and actually like would be so curious around this, what does success in business look like to you, or what's the number that you would love to hit in revenue per year? I know that within my community, like seven-figure business is massive success. High six-figure business is massive success. Like those numbers are the type of numbers that feel incredible for us as, and again, this is so like generally speaking, but for us as women running families, all those things, within my community, success isn't necessarily looking like scaling the business to the 2 million, 5 million, $10 million business. Not that there is anything right or wrong about any of that, but doing a level set, first of all, on what does success look like to you? What does growth look like to you is really important because if you know that, then you're going to have the opportunity to work backwards and you might likely surprise yourself. So, in the interest of just full transparency, our business does seven figures in the last year. We've been on maternity leave, so slightly less than. But in a standard year, it's a seven-figure business from 35 clients a year that pay $15,000 for 6 months times two. And like that to me is wild success. That's huge growth business. And again, I know for so many of my women in my community, and I'm sure for so many of you here, that's success as well. And so I think that so often we're buying into other versions of success, or we think about success to have no limits. Like we think about scalability and it's like, well, I need to be able to scale with no limit. It's like, says who? And is that actually success for you? Because the spaciousness in terms of profitability and time and all those things for me is so massive at this level of 35 clients, and just to kind of speak about it in another way as well, like I've got clients who have, 100-person masterminds or 150-person masterminds. Like you get to do that as well, but it just looks different. You'll hold different levels of responsibility, you'll have different levels of support. So I think, again, people hear that word mastermind and they just put it through one lens, whereas there's so many different versions and so many different ways that you can scale it at different levels.
Yeah, I think what you're saying about like I think there's become this thing in our space where unlimited scalability is kind of like the holy grail, but I think everyone forgets everything that comes with that, meaning like that means you have to fill your funnel in an unlimited way. Like that's
Um,
actually how that works. I mean, it sounds so obvious and funny to say, but I don't think we think about that enough. We're almost like if I build it, they will come kind of thing. And it's quite the opposite. It's like if you're wanting to choose the unlimited scalability version, you have to be willing to focus so deeply on filling that funnel over and over again in the marketing for that. And I definitely have clients that choose that because that's what they're really good at. Um, like they love to be in the like audience growth kind of mentality. But I think for so many people, that is not their forte. And that's actually what makes business feel really hard. And that's why I think higher touch, higher ticket business model is actually so great for so many people that want to be coaches because ultimately, like it doesn't, like you're saying 35 clients times two, basically, right? So it's like, and to get 60 clients a year. So let's say we go on a 10% conversion, you need to have 600 people like interested coming
Yep.
into your world a year. That's so low compared to like if you want to whatever scale a $600 course to a million. I'm not even do the math on that right now because it doesn't matter, but it's
Totally.
probably like 60,000, something like that, right? Like it's really a different game. It's not a
Yeah.
bad game, but I just don't think enough people think about like they think about business model really separate to what it takes to build that business model. So they're like, oh, I like the idea of something that could make unlimited money and that doesn't take as much of my time. And they think of it outside of like, well, what would it take to grow that? You know what I'm saying?
100% agree. And again, it's so insidious because I do think that. you mentioned this at the top of the call. A lot of it is just messaging that we're hearing online. And, there was a time, around COVID times when it was really, really sexy to have the unlimited funnel because
Yeah.
it was so easy to keep scaling that type of funnel. I mean, the reality is that we're in a maturing market right now, and that's not a problem unless you make it a problem. It's just a maturing market. And so when we move into maturing markets, we look at it through the lens of, well, okay, we're in a market where that means there's other people. Like, we need to consider what it looks like for us to stand out. Like, how do we get to make this easier for ourselves?
Yeah. Totally. And I feel like so many people think low ticket is easy. And like it, again, it is for some people, but I think that again, we look at it in this micro way. Like maybe it's easy to like make a quick PDF or whatever, but is it easy to get people bought in on that? Like we have to really be thinking about like what do our people want? Like what is my audience saying? What are people wanting to spend time, money, and energy on? And I just don't think we look at it enough. We look at everything in these silos of like, oh, this kind of business model would be great, but of course I don't want to do all that. Or like, oh, it'd be really easy for me to go make this product, but do my people actually want this product? And I think that
Yeah.
that's why looking at all of this together is really helpful. That's why we're talking about like high ticket really does have a lot of benefits, especially in the age of AI, because if you look at all those factors together, okay, in a maturing market, you need less, people coming in your funnel. Okay. In the world where information is everywhere, you're giving more than information, you're giving high touch. Like there are a lot of pieces to this that fit. It's not the only way, but it's definitely a good way. And I just don't think we hear about it being a good way enough. Every time I talk about like, oh my God, I love one-on-one, I get messages that are like, oh my gosh, thank you for giving me that permission. I'm not hearing that anywhere. And I just think that's what we have to, hear more of like you saying, like, actually, it's really great to run a mastermind, or actually, I'm not trying to do this just so that I can get enough money to then get out of it or whatever.
Yes. Well, it's so interesting. I found myself writing an email the other day, and I literally sat there and I had this thought of, and you get this because you know me, you know my life, you know everything about, I was literally about to say, everything about me still tracks.
Also true.
So it's true. But like through that lens, I was writing this email, right? And maybe like some of you can relate to this, but I was writing this email, I was sitting there and I was like, how do I convey in this moment, like how genuinely I love my life and love my business and actually get that across to people? And it was less like me having that thought wasn't about me. It was more about knowing that there are so many people out there who are spruiking these amazing businesses and amazing lives, but that they don't actually fully feel convicted in that. Like, I feel so incredibly self-convinced, let's say, that I love my model and my work. I've been doing it now for 6 years. I love it.
Yeah.
Like, and it was so wild to me that I was just like, I mean, the obvious answer to that is, you be yourself and all those things. And of course, I could coach myself through that. But what I'm more trying to communicate is that I just felt this feeling of being like, I just deeply love this business so much. And I just think that people don't get it and people don't understand how good it gets to be. Lacey, you and I, like, we talk about our lifestyle so often. And I know that we both get to have this beautiful lifestyle where, lifestyle being work and not work. And I know this was the second piece that you wanted to speak more into. Like in work, we both love our work. We both like speak so lovingly about our clients, like deeply care. And then outside of work, we get to have these beautiful lives with our beautiful babies and families and really get to live this life that feels incredible to us. And that's not to say that other models don't get that, because they absolutely do. But I think that it's really important if you're trying to work out what's true for you and your model to find and learn and see from other people who genuinely love theirs. And I
Yes.
think
Were
that's hard to
you?
find.
Were you ever a Sex in the City girly?
Yeah, why have we never had this conversation before? You kidding?
Yeah. So every time I try to explain it, this is like the thought that comes up for me. I don't know if you remember this episode. I'm sure you do, but um, like Carrie's asking everybody, like, are they happy in their relationship? And
I don't
Charlotte's
remember.
like, not all day, every day, but
Oh
like,
yeah, yeah.
hey, like every
Yes.
day I'm happy in my marriage. And I feel like that is like the most perfect example I could say. I'm not happy in my business all day, every day. Like there's annoying shit. Like there's things that happen, of course. Like that's how it goes. But like every single day, there is
It's
a
true.
piece of me that's like, I am so fucking happy to be here and doing this work. And like that is the only thing I care about because it's like the context of my life. Like that is literally
Yep.
my life. Do you know what I mean? Same thing in a relationship. Like if you can't say that, like, well, what are you spending your day doing? Um, and I just think we undervalue that so much. Like if you're not building a model where every day there's a part of you that can be like, I actually really love this, like that is a red flag. And it doesn't have to be one-on-one. It doesn't have to be high ticket. It doesn't have to be mastermind. But like if there's anything to take away, like let it be that. Mm.
100%. And the thing about it is, it's like, so why do we love it? You know, why do we love high ticket? And for me, there's so many things. So we've talked to the numbers piece, we've talked to lifestyle. There's
Yeah.
like a deep nervous system regulation for me that I couldn't not talk to as part of this. Like the way that I feel knowing that I have recurring future facing revenue coming in every single month because I have this program that is, 6 and 12 months, and I have that revenue consistently. I'm not starting every month at zero. I interviewed an incredible student who came through the mastermind model just last week. And she literally walked me through the feeling of starting every new month at zero. And the way she took me into that, I'd never heard anyone speak to it in that exact way. And I could feel my cortisol rising just listening to her
Yeah.
speak. Like, and that's the thing. If you're selling courses, if you're selling something one off, like that type of feeling, I mean, there's just so much to be said for having consistent recurring revenue, high ticket recurring revenue. So that's the difference really between memberships is a lot of the time with memberships, you might get an additional 3 to 5K or 10K or whatever, amazing. But to have, 50K to 100K months banked recurring, like the level of safety in that is really incredible.
Totally. I obviously have like a slightly different situation in that I have partnerships, so it kind of varies, but kind of doesn't at all. Um,
Totally. Well, I think like I'm a good client example, right? Like you start to track the data, you would know like what it
yes,
looks
on average, like what exactly 100%. And I think, but like even to say, like even with that, like the other thing that we both have is wait lists. Like you've had wait lists for your mastermind.
like. Yeah.
For years. I've had a one-on-one wait list for years. And I think that that's another benefit of high ticket that some people forget is like, yes, it's the recurring revenue, but it's also knowing that there are other people that are interested in taking that seat too, which I think is really, really regulating as well.
So
Is it never feels like, oh, it's such a grind to go get someone new, especially when you've like really built up these containers in a way where people like know them, they know you get results, all of those kind of things. We can talk about that too, but there really is something to be said for not just having the recurring revenue, although I mean like
yeah.
100% that's the most important part, but then also having even like a buffer for that of like I had last year one of my clients had this like huge like really unfortunate family situation happen and she had to stop coaching like immediately. And I think it honestly felt really good for both of us because she was a really beautiful long-term client. She was like, I hate that I'm like, bye, I'm out. Like I love knowing that like someone's there waiting kind of. And I
Definitely.
was like, I love being like, yes, bye, go do whatever you need to do without like the stress of that. And so
Yeah.
I think it's just like really helpful to say too, like that's much easier to build with these kind of high ticket models. And so that's something to consider too. Mm.
I just don't know how you coach every day in survival mode. Like, I do not have it in me to be someone living
Oh,
in
I love
survival mode
it.
and coaching every day, I mean, look, like life will life. Like, I did a 3 year fertility journey. You've navigated your fair share of grief these last few years. Like, life will life. And that, like, if you're a good coach, you know how to separate yourself and all those things. But coaching someone who's like in survival mode in their business, if you're feeling that as well, like, I'd really like to hard avoid that at all costs, actually, personally.
Well, to me, it's like I I had a lot of times in my uh job where I felt like I was just in survival mode every day. And like some of the promises I made myself and starting my own business and leaving that were like, I'm not going to feel this way every day. Like, I'm not going to
Yeah.
feel this stressed out. I'm not going to question if this is all there is. I'm not going to feel this level of activation all the time. And so, like, what's the point of doing something else? And again, not that business isn't stressful. Of course, running your own business brings its own activation and its own stress, but like the model, the foundation of it, when that doesn't, it's easier to deal with all the other stress. When the very base of your business is really stress oriented or really like kind of uncertain, it does make every single other thing that happens on top of that hard.
Agree with that.
Yeah. I think another thing that comes up for me that's like really helpful to talk about is just the weight of this. Like I a weight of holding high ticket, high touch clients. I think that's something a lot of people get worried about, I guess is a way to
I
say it, of like
know.
it's so much to hold all of these humans in this way. I would love to hear you talk about that. Obviously, we both do it in slightly different ways, but I think we both hold like a lot of people at a high level at once. And I
Totally.
think it's helpful to hear about that.
Definitely. I think it's such a good conversation too, because what I personally find is that if somebody has a mastermind and they're wanting to scale it, which is often the point in which someone will enter my world. So they'll come in when they're starting maybe their first mastermind, or perhaps they've got a, 6 or 10 person mastermind and they really want to scale that. One of the biggest things that comes up during that time is I really want to scale my mastermind. But here's all the fears that I have around actually being able to scale it and hold those people. And it relates to things like, can I hold a group dynamic? Can I, as you say, actually hold that many people, high ticket, etc.? So what I find is that oftentimes it will then limit people from scaling because this idea of that much responsibility feels really limiting to them. So
Mhm.
the thing that I see the most, and I know you and I have very similar clients, ideal clients, and I imagine a lot of your community here listening to this identify as this as well. But for me, a lot of my clients are the high performer, high achiever who really over delivers and over gives. And a lot of the time, we need to get really, really clear on what our boundaries are when we're holding any kind of space, but in particular, a group space or a mastermind. Because most of the time, when we're having those concerns around responsibility, it's because we're mentally holding things that we shouldn't be. And so a really useful like way of navigating that I go through with clients is to get really clear with them on, well, what is the criteria of the container? Like what actually are people getting when they come in and work with you in this mastermind? What are you promising to them? What are your boundaries? Like what does that look like? Because when you get really clear on that and you can articulate and communicate that with your client, you get clear on what it is that you hold and what it is that you don't hold. Because those 3 a.m. thoughts and the worries and the stress, it's usually stuff that's outside of your scope or outside of, stuff that is yours to hold or to carry. And that's not to say that we don't all spend time thinking about and worrying about our clients because we're human, but being really clear on those boundaries is super important. And, again, I love that you bring this up because a lot of the time this is the work. Lacey knows like I will have moments where I'm like, I want to look at what's mine and what's not mine here. And that's healthy. Like it's really, really healthy because it's good coaches that do that. Like I see it in my masterminds, it's good coaches, it's people that care, that ask those questions, like what's mine, what's not mine, how can I do better here? And also being really mindful of what you take on and what you hold and what is and what isn't yours is just really, really important. And when you get that right, it will actually feel so much lighter for you to be able to have that group. There's so many other things around, groups carry each other in so many ways and all of that, which we can obviously talk to as well.
Yeah, I think what's so interesting about that is every time I hear that conversation, like the first thought for me is like, well, anybody that's letting someone pay them for support and results should have some level of responsibility in that. And
100%.
so, like, I get that high ticket feels like more because you're more engaged with the person, but like technically that's equal across formats in a sense of like if you have someone coming in a course, like obviously you have a course as well, like you still care. You're still thinking about like, how can I get them
Totally.
results? How does it matter? So I think that part's really important to say of like, technically that never goes away. Like if that's what you're running from, like that's, you're going to have to work on that in any model. I mean, membership is such a good example of that. Like it matters so much there. Retention is like the number one feeder of your income. So like, of course you're going to have to care
Totally.
about that. So I say all that to say, like, I think it's easy to make that like a high ticket thing because it's less removed, but it's just true, period. Like you get to your point,
Yeah.
if you care, if you're, wanting to give a good experience. But the thing with something like a course is that the exchange feels more clear. And so to your point, if you're making the exchange clear, it gets easier. And I think that's where a lot of people go wrong with high ticket stuff is that they don't necessarily make the exchange super clear as it relates to promises, boundaries, what delivery looks like, what over delivery looks like, all of that kind of stuff. And that's where it gets really murky. Um, and honestly, I think what it calls all of us to do is be better at our boundaries. I did one of those, like, if I wasn't afraid to hurt your feelings posts. And one of the things I said
Yeah.
in it was like, you probably don't need to expand your capacity. You probably need to get better boundaries. Cause I feel like everyone's like, oh, I'd have to really expand my capacity to let in like more high ticket clients. And it's like, actually, you probably like to work on your boundaries a little bit more because that's really what it is. And that doesn't mean we're, uh, whatever, detached from our clients. I think you and I are both very in it. With our clients, the boundaries like keep
Yeah.
you safe, but it keeps your clients safe too. Like they know what's appropriate to ask for, they know how they can lean in, like you're creating a safe container for them. So I think it's really helpful to say like this issue is an issue at almost every level. It just feels cleaner for some people to do it in terms of courses, but you can do it just as well in high ticket mastermind. You just need like the structures and format to do that. Mhm.
Completely agree with that.
Let's talk about, I'm really curious for you to share some insights on like the AI piece, because I think this is so big for people. Like, is your community craving a lot more high touch because of that? Are they actually doing things on their own more? Like, what are you seeing as it relates to that and how that, lends itself to high ticket?
Yeah, it's so interesting because I almost feel like we're too early for me to spot like really clear trends right now. Like I have moments where, like at the start of this year, I was like, oh, maybe we're getting less questions in our Slack channel, for example. And this is me, giving my mastermind as an example. And then that only lasted for a little season. And I was like, okay, no, this is not true. And then, we had a period of time where people were like, I really, really want more community. But honestly, like across the board, there's no real huge change. The biggest thing I would say is that my people are probably asking better, more elevated questions because they're using me and they're sparring
Mhm,
with
mhm.
ChatGPT as well.
Yeah.
I had a
Mhm.
conversation with a client today where, so for example, like I do success plans in my mastermind. And I was having a conversation with a client where she also writes like 90-day plans when they come in to the mastermind. And she said to me, you know, she was like, I'm just getting up in my head about doing this plan and making it really good because ChatGPT could deliver the same thing.
Mhm.
And I said to her two things that I think are really, really important to remember. The first is something that we're doing is we're using AI to just make our plans better. And our clients are loving that. Like if you're leveraging AI in the right way, you really get to use it to your advantage and to make a better experience. And so that's really an example of across the board. I'm always thinking about, well, how can we integrate AI to just make our mastermind an even better experience? So that was something that came up that I said to her. And then the second was like, remember that your people are there because they're wanting your brain, your process, your community, your energy. And so, again, it's just really important to think about, well, why are my people here? What's the promise? Why does my mastermind stand out? And I think that, like anything that we're selling right now, we're just going to have to ask these questions more and more and more. So, within my mastermind, so many of my clients have their own masterminds, of course. And something that so many of them that are really doubling down on right now, and the ones who are getting incredible results are doing this, is just getting so, so clear on like what is different about my mastermind? What is different about me as the facilitator of this mastermind?
Hmm.
As you can double down on that, like that's the thing that's really going to support you. So I think it can be so easy. I mean, it depends who you ask, right? Like some people might say, hey, masterminds are better than any other offer right now because they actually have community and everyone's craving community. People might say, oh no, but people aren't going to spend as much high ticket because why would they come in for you for questions? There's ChatGPT. Like there's there's so much stuff out there around this conversation. Ultimately, like my biggest recommendation around creating or scaling a mastermind would be to double down on the thing that is your unique unfair advantage, the thing that really makes you unique. Because if you do that, your mastermind's can continue to sell out in any market, including one that's just becoming more and more AI driven.
Totally. I think that what I feel like I see happening is similar to what you're saying, which is like nobody's mad that you're using AI or like nobody cares.
No,
I think it gets really frustrating for people or where it gives people like an ick or a bad taste or however you want to say that when it's like feels like AI did the whole job. Even on something as easy as like an Instagram caption.
100%.
Right. It's one thing if you're like, oh, that was like a really insightful caption or whatever, and maybe you like use ChatGPT to like get some really good angles going or whatever. And I think it's a totally different thing where you're like, oh, literally, like you can tell it wrote the whole thing. I like don't feel you, I don't feel your voice in it. So I think that people still want to feel you, feel your energy,
Yep.
feel your expertise. And so that's going to be true across the board. So I think that with high ticket or high touch kind of stuff. They want to feel the human. They want to
Definitely.
really have that experience. And I think that that is what people are paying for. And someone that doesn't want that, like they're just using ChatGPT anyway. Like you're almost not competing with that. Like that's just not an interest of theirs, and it wouldn't have been before ChatGPT anyway. They would have just been buying like digital
Totally.
products. So
It's
go ahead.
I was just going to add to that, like, with just this might be like really niche content, but a really practical example here is that. So, I literally am delivering plans at the moment to clients where, as I deliver them and I send through a Loom video, like, I talk through, I'm like, so this is the big idea, this is, the strategy around it. And then I sparred with ChatGPT around these things, and
Yeah.
this is what I came up with, and this is what I changed. And so, for anyone that's listening, if you do any kind of done with you as part of your high ticket offer, like that type of language works so well because
Yes.
A, it's very permission giving. B, you're really clear on where you're utilizing AI as part of your process. So there's just no question marks around that.
Well, and there's still a value add for them because you sparring with
Huge,
GPT versus
huge.
them having to spend the time doing that, but you doing it with a level of expertise, neutrality, all of that kind of stuff. Like you're still able to so clearly articulate the value there. And I think that really matters. And so I feel like that's one of the things that we need to be looking at is like, no, again, nobody's mad that you're using AI. Like we're all going to be using
Yep.
AI. Like that's not going away, in my opinion. Um,
Yes.
but it's like, how are we using it and how are we doing it with this like human lens and how are we really leaning into that? And I think that um, someone that shows up and is in your business or in your whatever it ends up being that you're in a mastermind for your business, your body, your career, whatever with you is so much more useful. Then you don't care if they're using it. It's just a tool versus if what they're
100%.
trying to sell you is the work of a tool. It's like different things.
It's so true. I've got a mastermind client. She runs a seven-figure mastermind. And she sent me a note yesterday on a Loom video and she was like, okay, I really need your help with messaging here. And I've gone through and sorry, coughing fit. I've gone through and I've got these three ideas for my byline and I've asked ChatGPT and I've come up with these. And she was like, I kind of like this one. I kind of like this one, but you know my ideal client so well and I love your messaging. What do you think?
Yeah.
And it was the reminder of the point of all of this, which is that so often, like ChatGPT is a tool that we are using the world over. And yes, we're all prompting it differently and whatever. However, like my client was still using it as a tool where she didn't trust that tool like she trusted me to know her ideal client. Like
Yeah.
she wasn't even asking me for messaging. She was asking for my advice around that messaging because she knows I get her ideal client. She knows that I know online business really well, all those things. And so, like that level of strategic expertise at a high level in whatever industry you're in, I mean, I just feel zero concern that that is going to go away.
Or even I think the opposite example of that is like I've said to a few clients recently, like, hey, I love you, but it sounds like ChatGPT wrote this whole thing. Like, if I were you, I would not be using this.
Yep.
Like, I
Yep.
would do this, and that. Even that is like a level of expertise that is relevant to this. If you're in a program, you're not having someone look through that and be able to say that to you. Um, and so, yeah, it's just like, okay, we have to start seeing it as like a tool we're using. And how do we show our ability to use that tool or help you leverage that tool or help name it when that tool is not working for you? And I think that's really helpful. I feel like when so many people are like getting worked up about it, it's almost like they think that the value is then being like, we're AI free or something. And I'm sure there's some market where people will be interested in that. But I think it's like what people want is to see value in the utilization of that. And I think if you can show that in high
Exactly.
ticket's a great way to, or I keep saying high ticket, and I really mean to say like high touch, but like high touch is a great
Yeah.
way to show that because you're adding your touch to that. And so I think there's like really nothing to be like scared of there. I think, I don't know if there's anything like this in Australia right now, but in a state in the US, there was just legislation passed against using ChatGPT as a therapist.
That's interesting. I think I read about that. See, yeah, we're getting some legislation coming around schooling, but we're not there yet.
Yeah. So, I mean, who knows where that goes, right? Or like what that even is going to like look like in practice or mean. But, um, of course, there are going to be people that are going to like use AI as their coach and decide that there is no value in coaching. But like, again, I don't know that those would be the right fit clients for a lot of us anyway,
Yeah.
particularly with the therapy thing or whatever.
Well, I was about to say to that point, then it becomes a conversation of are you a business that's solving a high enough value problem for a specific person in the
Absolutely.
market? And I do think that this is where we really need to take a discerning lens of who we're serving and how we're serving them. And if the problem is not there and they don't have the money to pay for that problem, then we need to make some really smart business decisions about serving different markets or shifting our market or whatever else. And again, for the majority of us, because we do transformational work, we're already really on that vibe train. Like we know that when you're selling transformational work, like this type of service, it is a service that we're selling to people whose base needs are covered. Like we're selling it to a really small portion of the market.
Yeah.
But if that doesn't feel true for you, if you're watching this, then I would definitely play with, okay, is there something that needs to shift there?
I also think it's like it could be playing up what's already present in your offers, but like making that even more attractive. Like for masterminds for so long, I feel like there's been trends that go in and out of like highlighting community as one of the biggest values. And I feel like, well, that's so smart right now because that's something AI literally can't give you. Right. And so I was literally just reviewing a client's mastermind sales page yesterday and I was like, play up community more, talk to that more, speak to that more, like go really deep on that. Like in the past, you would have like it would have almost been like a two-liner kind of afterthought. And I was like, now it's a section, now it's a thing. And so I
Yeah.
think that's really helpful too. Or like even in my one-on-one, like I'm doing that in-person client event. I'm like, cool, like I've always like wanted to connect my clients and have done that different ways over the years. But it's like you can take these pieces that already exist and magnify them because that's not what they're getting elsewhere. And I think that's really helpful. Like a lot of people, I feel like in almost feel like they'd have to do something totally different. It's like sometimes it's just like the magnification of different pieces of your offer too.
Yes. I so agree with that. Sorry, I got distracted for a second because I can hear a baby crying, but that's not my problem right now. But she should not be awake.
I feel like the mom brain is so hard. Like you're like, I know that's not my problem. And also I am like in fight or flight wanting to run to a crying baby.
I was just like, I need to name this right now because what is happening? This would be very interesting for any mamas listening. Interesting slash not interesting. We've just transitioned to one nap today.
Oh, yeah.
First day of doing that. She did really well. I'm very proud of her. But yeah, so I don't know what our night's gonna look like.
sending good vibes.
Yeah,
Like it
thank
always
you.
surprises you. You're like, oh, they'll be so tired, it's fine, and then they're not. Or you'll be like, oh, it's gonna be a disaster, and then it's totally fine.
I know Misha, my sister-in-law, who, for those of you watching, she's a sleep consultant. She's been helping me through this process, but I don't know, she gave me some false hope. So I don't know. We'll see.
Take it.
We'll see.
Okay. Anything else that, and obviously, if you need to go get a baby, I'm happy to
No, I don't.
uh,
Yeah,
carry
yeah.
the convo for a minute. But anything else that feels really important? I think maybe we could end on you just sharing like one or two takeaways. I'll share a takeaway, and then we can kind of wrap it up for everybody there and tell them how they can find you and connect with you.
Amazing. Look, I think that the biggest thing at the moment that I think is so true is that ultimately, if you are listening to this and you're like, I don't know where to double down in my business, but you know you want more recurring revenue, you know you want more, of that high ticket opportunity to spend more of your time serving clients in a way that gets transformational results. You want a model that you can scale and make more consistent recurring money, from a scaled model. Like a mastermind is a damn good idea, like an incredible idea. And that's really the point to get across there. Like you might hear that, you might feel like that's absolutely right for me, that's absolutely not right for me. That is okay. But ultimately, knowing that there is a business model in amongst many business models where you can have all of those things that I just mentioned, that's really important to share. And I say this not just as somebody who has personally created that model, but as I mentioned before, I've created the mastermind model now as a program where we've had 200 plus people come through that in the last couple of years. And I'll say the thing I'm not meant to say, but like I knew it worked, but I have even been blown away by the number of people whose lives have transformed because they've doubled down in this way. So it is something that's transformational. It is something that's, you know, it's an incredible model. So that's really the main thing that I would love to leave on there because I think it's so important to know that if you are feeling like it's hard or you're spending so much time in front end client acquisition for courses and you're just not able to keep those and your lifetime client value is really low, like there really is a different way.
The thing that I would say around that I don't feel like we like talked about as much as maybe sort of like I don't know if it's the best thought to end on, but it feels really, really relevant is, and you don't have to not have like low ticket either. But what I'm seeing
Oh
right
yeah.
now is like, if you can have great low ticket, the way to make the most money and have the most ease from that is to take those people you're selling into low ticket and sell them into higher level offers. Like, I think it is much harder in our industry than it has ever been to have a really successful, profitable business off $1,000 product. I'm not
Yes.
saying it's not possible. I have clients that do it. I have a client that has a really successful business off of a couple $100 product. Like it can
Yep. Same
happen,
here.
but I think that we so undervalue like getting the same people in and then being able to sell them more. And so I think that's a really important piece of that. Like, that there's sort of this saying with ads of like the one who can spend the most wins. Um, how can you spend the most? Well, there's lifetime value associated with these clients. So this is not just do high ticket and don't do anything else, but it's like even if you're doing something else and you're like, man, this like hamster wheel that I feel like I'm on is feeling a little hard. High ticket can be a really good solution to that because you've
Yep.
already paid for those leads, whether it's with time, money, ads, your energy into organic content, you've already paid for those leads. If they want more from you or a higher touch experience with you, that can be the absolute smartest way to scale and to add a really solid foundation to your business. So I think that part's important to say too. Like this isn't like this or that. It's like this and that.
I love that you shared that. I literally had like a 30-minute conversation with a client about that very thing today.
I talked to one of my clients about this recently. Like her funnel is working really well. And she's like, but I want to make more money. Do I just need to like triple my ad spend? I'm like, to be honest with you, I think what you need to do is add a higher ticket offering. Like, and I like
Yeah.
did the numbers with her and she was like, oh shit. Like, yeah, we can fill that funnel all day, but there's, if you want to talk like really high profitability right now, like that's probably where it's
Yeah.
at. So, yeah.
Totally, with potentially less stress or, like something that feels even more easeful.
Yeah. Amazing. Okay. If they want to learn all things mastermind, how can they do that?
Okay, so I've got a free training that I'm running in a couple of weeks' time if you're listening to this in real time. So, running a 3-day challenge on how to build, fill, and scale your mastermind to become that 50K plus per month offer.
What day is it exactly? Just because I'll send it out in an email too.
Oh, amazing. I would love that so much. Thank you. It is September 2nd through to 4th. So the link is ellieswift.com/scale. I can pop it right here after we finish chatting. It's going to be incredible. I'm so excited about it. We've got 1,800 people signed up already. It's going to be an absolute vibe. I'm going to just fully humble brag for a moment and say that my free challenges, like the value that I drop in those 3 days, it's going to be really, really good. So come join me live if you can. I'll be running it at a time that is US friendly. It'll be in the evening if you're in the States. But essentially going to take you through that process. You're going to get a really clear indication of, does it work as part of my business? What does it look like for me to scale a mastermind as part of my business? You can come out of that knowing exactly what your next steps are. Great time of year to do it, knowing that we're heading into peak mastermind sales season for the last 4 or 5 months of the year.
Totally. Yeah, so true. Amazing. Thank you for being here. I love you. I appreciate you. I appreciate your evening with us, and I'm sending you good sleep vibes.
The best wrap up. I love you. Thank you so much for having me in the space, for all of you for being here. It means the world.
Bye, guys.
Yeah, bye.